bring in Newt Gingrich, Fox News contributor, former Speaker of the House, and author of the upcoming book, Trump and the American Future. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, to piggyback on your book title, what does the future look like for police reform?
Oh, I think clearly the country is reaching a consensus that there have to be steps taken to improve police training, to limit the use of things like chokeholds. I suspect there will be presently a requirement that every policeman has to have some kind of camera that's automatically on every time while they're on active duty. And I think that there is an effort here to recognize that out of over 800,000 policemen, the vast overwhelming majority want to be good, solid police doing the right things. And you've got to have some ability to get the system rid of people who are bad apples. And in the case of one of the people in Minneapolis, I think they'd had citation after citation after citation. And at that time, the contract with the union kept them in their job, even though they clearly should not have been there anymore. So I think you're going to see some serious effort around the country to create a sort of a ability to get rid of bad apples, which candidly is also something that should be applied to the government schools in these big cities, who also have provisions that block you from getting rid of people who are really bad teachers. So it's a big problem in the bigger cities with the way their contracts are set up.
So they did criminal justice reform about a year ago. The president's already done that. So that is part of his resume when he tries to get 4 more years. Do you feel as though, as determined as this country is to do some type of law enforcement reform, Democrats will fear giving the president another so-called law and order victory, stopping legislation in its tracks before July?
Well, I mean, I have enormous respect for Tim Scott. I've campaigned with him and known him for many, many years, back long before he got to the Senate. I think he's going to produce a solid, responsible bill. My guess is it'll go through the Senate on a bipartisan basis, and I hope that Speaker Pelosi will be able to actually work on a bipartisan basis on this topic. I mean, you have a country right now which has a very real problem in city after city. And of course, some of it, Portland is a good example. Portland was the original home of Antifa back in 2003. So it's not any great surprise that Portland has a huge problem because for years, the liberal politicians who run the city have backed off and given Antifa more and more and more ability to cause trouble. And now it's blowing up on them just as it did north of there in Seattle. I mean, it's going to take a while to have a conversation about exactly what is going on. And I think you've also got to ask the question, which will be a newsletter I'm doing in the very near future, is our real goal here black success or white guilt? The effort on the left is to run around chanting about, white guilt and automatic white racism, et cetera. I don't think it builds a single building. I don't think it teaches a single child. I think what we ought to have, and what the president was moving towards before COVID, was the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans in history, lowest unemployment rate for Latinos. When everybody in a community can get a job, and when they have a real chance to rise, you begin to have, I think, a much better situation, and you begin to have people who aren't quite as angry.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, 1 week from today, John Bolton, who is the president's national security advisor, is saying he's going to release his book. It's called The Room Where It Happened. The problem is for him, according to the administration, apparently he did not check all the boxes, did not get it completely cleared through the administration and the National Security Council as well, although the publisher says they did. Here's the Attorney General talking about this could be a big problem for him.
I don't know of any book that's been published so quickly. The thing that is front and center right now is trying to get him to complete the process, go through the process and make the necessary deletions of classified information. We don't believe that Bolton went through that process, hasn't completed the process, and therefore is in violation of that agreement.
Okay, so if you're John Bolton, what do you do? I mean, the publisher says we worked with the NSA, But at the same time, they say this is the book Donald Trump doesn't want you to read. And Donald Trump is saying, look, he said, any conversation with me is classified.
Well, I think that there is a very serious issue about executive privilege. I've been, frankly, very surprised and very disappointed in the way that Ambassador Bolton has pursued this. I've known John for many, many years, and I just think this is so totally out of character for him. And he has a real potential legal problem. I mean, I don't think the Attorney General is speaking for President Trump as a candidate. The Attorney General is saying, we have a set of laws, we have a set of agreements, and you have to go through this process. Everybody else has to go through that process. So why shouldn't John Bolton have to go through the process? And it's not up to his publisher to decide whether or not they've gone through the process. It's a legal problem. This is not a PR problem.